In this episode, we start from Tabo and go on to Kaza. From Kaza, we do a day trip to Hikkim, Komic, Langza, and back to Kaza. After a 2-night stay at Kaza, we leave for Losar. Next day morning, we started our drive towards Kaza, which is the district headquarters. As usual, the route was still along the Spiti River. Stopping and watching nature was such a humbling feeling. You realize how small you are.
Mountain goats. At Chichling, the river suddenly splits into a mesh of channels in the wide riverbed. A helipad near Dhankar Monastery. Dhankar, the old capital of Spiti, is both a monastery and a fort. It is perched high on an outcrop of rock, a collection of white buildings straggling down the cliffside. These amazing, super gigantic, anthill-like formations were out of the world. We parked under them and walked towards the monastery. Dhang or dung means cliff and kar or khar means fort. Hence Dhankar means fort on a cliff. Photography was allowed here. Being a fort, it had one door that opened onto a cliff. The complex is built on a 1,000 foot, that is 300 meter high spur overlooking the confluence of the Spiti and Peen rivers, one of the world's most spectacular settings for a gompa. The view of the mountain and of the wide river was mesmerizing.
After half an hour at Dhankar, we continued our drive towards Kaza. We came across a roadblock due to construction. Unlike in a city, where a roadblock is annoying, here the feeling was quite different. We felt respect for the people working at such cold temperatures, high altitudes, with limited machinery, to build roads where very few people travel. Hats off to the BRO of India. 2 to 3 weeks from now, this road will be covered in snow for several months. At some places, there were giant anthill-like structures stabbing upwards into the sky. At others, they looked like large crayons and pencils. Rock friezes marched across the mountain face, and we could not look away even for a second. We reached Kaza. It is the subdivisional headquarters of this remote Spiti Valley, at an elevation of 3,650 meters. We stayed at a place called Sakya Abode. This hotel had a very lovely and warmly decorated reception cum dining room cum main hall. Otherwise, the property was very simple. A large room doubles as the reception and restaurant and acts as a common room for the guests. For travelers, this is the town where you refuel your vehicle, get cash from ATMs, for hospital access, and so on and so forth. The Sakya monastery is in this town. Originally a cave in the mountainside, it was built by Sakya Sangpo in 1268 and restored in the 16th century. It contains some of the most magnificent surviving artwork from all of Tibet, which appears not to have been damaged in recent times. Oh, look what's here! Decathlon! At 3,660 meters, would this be the world's highest decathlon store? For dinner, the Sakya abode had lined up thentuk, which is a soup with flat noodles and vegetables, tingmo, which is a steamed bread, aloo fing, that's potatoes and glass noodles, and chicken shakta. It was delicious. The next day, we filled the fuel tank with diesel from the world's highest fuel station. There is no petrol pump for the next 4 days in our itinerary. This day was dedicated for local sightseeing. The distance was only 55 kilometers, but it took us the whole day to cover it. This place remains cut off from other regions for half the year due to heavy snow over the passes. It's an extreme place to live. The road climbed up from the valley and gained some more altitude. As you can see, it's extremely hard to find words to describe the natural beauty here. Our first stop was Hikkim, a remote village which has the highest post office in the world. We got several postcards along, but we did not get stamps as we were hoping to buy those at the post office. Once we reached Hikkim, it was hard to find a living soul. It was like a deserted village. With no signboards, we just tracked down and fortunately found the famous post office. But alas, there was nobody to buy stamps from. After a bit of peeking around through old windows and doors, an old lady came up and said, "Postmaster Kaza gaya." The postmaster has gone to Kaza. So we handed over all our letters to this old lady, along with money for the stamps, and requested her to hand it over to the postmaster. These letters and postcards were indeed delivered to the postmaster, who duly posted them. That is diligence. This place also happens to hold the record for the highest polling station in the world.
इस गांव में कितने लोग हैं? 200 आदमी हैं।
One wonders how just 200 people live here and how they survive the winter. The next stop was Komic, the highest village in the world that is accessible by a motorable road. We're talking about 4587 meters. That's little more than half the height of Mount Everest. The population was 114 souls. The Komic monastery was built in the 1970s when the earlier one at Hikkim was damaged in an earthquake. We witnessed how the Buddhist prayer flags are made. The Lama explained this to us, and with permission, we were allowed to make this video. The ink is firewood ash mixed with water. You apply a layer of ink on the wooden block and place a piece of cloth over it. You then apply some pressure and rub over it, and there you are. If you notice carefully, Buddhist prayer flags are always in a set of 5 colors and in a particular order. Blue symbolizes the sky and space, white symbolizes the air and wind, red symbolizes fire, green symbolizes water, and yellow symbolizes earth. From Komic, we continued our drive to the fossil village of Langza. Langza is overlooked by a pyramidal mountain with a snow peak. This area is famous for fossils that are found here, a reminder that this entire region was once submerged under the Tethys Sea. This place has a huge statue of Buddha overlooking the mountains. We had packed our lunch. The sun was bright, the weather was chilly and windy, and the views still amazing. Here you see the zigzag road we now have to climb down, and the Spiti River widening on the plains below. Wonderful! This place is a treat for photographers. The next day, we started our drive towards Losar, which is even higher in altitude. To prevent acute mountain sickness, we were constantly hydrating ourselves and drinking water flavored with ginger. On the way was Key Monastery. The Key Monastery is the largest in Spiti. The Key Monastery has a history of being attacked many times. Founded in the 11th century, it was destroyed in the 14th century when the Sakya sect rose to power with Mongol assistance. In the 17th century, it was attacked again by the Mongols. In the 19th century, It was sacked during wars between Ladakh and Kullu. In 1841, the Dogra army severely damaged it again. In the same year, the Sikh army inflicted more damage. In 1975, a violent earthquake caused further damage. It was finally repaired by the state's Public Works Department and the Archaeological Survey of India. The next stop was the little village of Kibber. Once upon a time, this was the highest village connected by a motorable road until Komic took its place. The temperature was approximately 5 degrees Celsius, even in the mid-morning. Breathing was heavy due to the low oxygen level.
The landscape here is so breathtaking that I could spend the whole day and night photographing this place. A 24-hour time lapse of this place would have been great. I carry my wide-angle lens for landscape photography, but here the mountains were so huge and distant that I never had to use it. The normal kit lens just worked fine.
My God!
We came across this gorge and the feeling was a bit eerie. No people around, the rocks surrounding you 360 degrees almost. Impossible for any direct sunlight to come in. How bizarre! How bizarre. I have seen the Grand Canyon and Somendu has been to the Alps. We both agreed that the places we are exploring in this trip can't be compared. India is more amazing than what we know.
We arrived in Losar in the late afternoon. As of now, the Nomad's Cottage is the only place in Losar that you can book online. There was a small stream flowing around, and as the car was completely dusty, we decided to give it a nice bath. But the water was sub-zero and our hands were freezing. We came back to our cottage. The place was cozy and warm inside and had 3 interconnecting rooms. The temperature outside was probably sub-zero, but the sky was starlit.